I kissed Ryan on the lips, my fingers trembling from the ultrasound jelly still cooling on my belly. The nurse had just printed the last image of our baby boy, his tiny hand curled like a fist near his cheek. My heart swelled. Ryan looked down at me and smiled, but his eyes, they were distant. Absent. Like he had already walked out of the room in his mind. Hours later, my water broke. And the next morning, while he showered and left his boxers lying in the hamper, I saw it, coral pink lipstick. Streaked across the inside of the waistband. That color was not mine. That color belonged to someone who had pressed her lips where I used to sleep. Hello, my name is Olivia Walker. I am 32 years old, born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. I fell in love once, deeply, fully, foolishly. And that love turned into marriage. That marriage turned into pregnancy. And that pregnancy delivered not just my son, but the truth. A truth I never imagined living through. Before I continue, let me take a moment to thank each and every one of you tuning into this story. Whether you are one of my loyal returning subscribers or someone just discovering this channel, I am so thankful for you. Your support, your comments, and your energy fuel this journey. If you have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to smash that subscribe button. It is the fuel that keeps me going. Please, drop your thoughts in the comments as the story unfolds. I want to hear it all, your pain, your rage, your surprises. Now, let me take you deeper. Ryan and I had been married for 4 years. He was a tall, blue-eyed finance guy with a clean jawline and the kind of smile that won over grandmothers and bartenders. We met at a tech conference, me, working in UX design, him networking for investors. He asked me if I believed in fate. I told him fate did not code websites. He laughed. I fell. It was that fast. When I got pregnant, it felt like the natural next chapter. We had just moved into a craftsman home in Myers Park. He had a Tesla. I had a walk-in closet. Life was comfortable. Perfect, even. For a while. But somewhere in my 7th month, something shifted. Ryan's kisses became quick, distracted. He said things like, "Do not wait up," more than he said, "I love you." He started hiding his phone like it was nuclear launch codes. I chalked it up to work stress. After all, babies are expensive. But then he started going for late runs. At 10:45 p.m. With cologne still wet on his neck. The night I found the lipstick, something in me cracked. I remember standing in the laundry room, holding the waistband of his boxers like they were evidence in a murder trial. That lipstick was glossy. Bold. Cheap. I pressed it against the back of my hand, Maybelline Coral Rush, the same shade worn by one woman I had grown to trust more than most. Our doula. Her name was Jenna Lee. She was 34. Blonde. Freckled shoulders. A voice that always stayed calm, even when I cried from Braxton Hicks at 2 a.m. She rubbed my lower back through cramps. She taught me how to breathe through fear. She called my son, our baby, more than once, and I had thought it was just sweet. But now, I remembered how she always touched Ryan when she spoke. How she laughed at his corny jokes. How her eyes sparkled when she said, "You two are the dream couple." That night, I laid beside him, pretending to sleep while his smartwatch buzzed. I gently lifted his wrist, held it to my face like I was nuzzling in love. But I was staring. Reading. "Jenna, I still feel your hands on my hips. Still smell you in my sheets." I bit the inside of my mouth until I tasted blood. He shifted beside me. My hands were trembling. I could not scream. I could not cry. My body was 9 months swollen. My baby was pressing on my bladder, my spine, my soul. But I lay there, next to my husband, while his secret lay hot and humid between us. The next morning, I called Jenna. I asked her to come by for a final prenatal stretch session. She agreed, cheerful as ever. She came. She hugged me. She hugged him. And when I saw the faint coral stain on her top lip, I smiled. I smiled like the monster I was about to become. Because I had a plan. I just needed to give birth to our son, before I buried his father. They placed my son in my arms at exactly 3:42 a.m. on the 2nd of June. The room smelled like sweat, iodine, and the first breath of something innocent. My legs were trembling. My lips were cracked from screaming. Ryan held my hand the entire time, whispering encouragement, dabbing my forehead with a damp cloth. The nurses called us the strong couple. I almost laughed. Jenna was in the delivery room. She stood behind the nurses, just out of the frame of the photos Ryan took. Her hands folded gently in front of her, her face soft, glowing like a proud aunt. The same hands that had touched his hips. The same lips that whispered her pleasure into his phone while I carried our child inside me. I could not scream. Not in that moment. My baby was resting on my chest. His breath was warm against my skin. I swallowed the scream. I swallowed everything. I named him Micah. Ryan kissed my forehead and told me it was beautiful. He cried. I watched the tears roll down his cheek, and for a brief moment, I forgot how much I hated him. He looked real. He looked grateful. But I knew the truth. I knew Jenna had been in his bed, probably still soaked in his scent when she massaged my ankles during my false labor. I let it happen. Not because I was weak. But because I needed to watch him lie. I needed to see if he would dare look into my face, into our child's face, and pretend to be the man I used to love. He did. And it nearly killed me. We went home 3 days later. The house was already decorated with blue balloons and silver streamers. His mother had flown in from Colorado. Jenna had organized everything. She stood on our porch, holding a homemade sign that read, "Welcome baby Micah." She had touched every part of my life. I wanted to shove that sign down her throat. But instead, I smiled. I walked up to her, hugged her longer than I needed to, and whispered, "You are so good to us." She shivered. I felt it. She knew. I could feel it in the way her hands stiffened against my back. She pulled away first. Ryan took the baby inside while Jenna lingered. I watched her watch him. That was the moment I saw it clearly, the truth in her eyes. She was not just a fling. She wanted more. She wanted him. The first week home was sleepless. Not because of the baby, Micah was surprisingly calm, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's hand on Jenna's hip. I imagined them kissing, touching, laughing at how clueless I was. The betrayal burned deeper than any postpartum cramp. Ryan was playing the perfect father. Diaper duty. Midnight bottles. Skin-to-skin cuddles on the couch. He took time off work. He brought me flowers every morning. But the flowers smelled like guilt. The love he performed felt too polished. He never once mentioned Jenna. She visited twice that week, under the excuse of postnatal care. She brought herbal teas, nipple cream, and a breast pump. She watched me nurse Micah with this tight-lipped smile that made my stomach curl. She asked me once, "How are you feeling emotionally?" I stared at her and said, like someone took something sacred from me and pretended it never happened. Her face dropped. She looked down, fumbled with her phone, and excused herself. I watched her leave and smiled. I was not done. 3 weeks passed. I could not sleep in our bed anymore. Not next to him. Not in the sheets I knew he came home to after being inside someone else. So I moved to the nursery. I told him it was easier to be close to Micah for nighttime feedings. He kissed my forehead and said, "I understand, baby. Anything you need." Anything I need? What I needed was to not feel like the punchline in a cruel joke. I started going through his things. Every morning after he left for walks, I checked his phone, his drawers, his car. One day, I found a second phone. hidden in the trunk of his Tesla, under the emergency kit. It was locked, but I knew him. His passcode had always been 11:05, our wedding date. The phone opened. There were only 2 contacts saved. Jenna L. Jenna W. He had her saved twice. One for when he needed to sneak messages through Instagram, and one for WhatsApp. 2 different apps. Same lies. I read their texts. Dozens. Hundreds. I miss the way you whisper my name. Did she notice the bruises on my back? You were made for my hands. I felt numb. Not rage. Not sadness. Just cold. I could have lit that phone on fire and watched it melt into ash without blinking. But I needed it. I screenshotted everything. I saved videos. I recorded voice notes. Evidence. Because love was not enough anymore. This was war. The final crack came on a rainy Thursday night. Ryan came home drenched. Claimed he got caught in the storm during a run. I was sitting on the nursery floor, nursing Micah under a soft yellow lamp. The room smelled like baby powder and lavender. He walked in, dripping water onto the carpet, and whispered, "He looks just like you." I looked up at him, and my voice trembled. "I think he has your lies." He froze. That was the first time I let it slip. His face twitched. He asked, "What do you mean?" I shook my head and turned away. "Nothing," I said. "Just tired." He reached out to touch my shoulder. I flinched. That night, I made my decision. I called Jenna the next morning and asked her to come by for one final postnatal session. She said yes. I had already spoken to my lawyer. I had already rented a storage unit. I had already moved the videos and texts to 3 separate drives. Micah slept in my arms as I whispered to him, "Mommy is going to protect you. Even if it means burning everything down." Here is the final chapter of your raw, romantic, and devastating infidelity story titled, Our Baby Was Due in June. His affair started in May. The morning Jenna arrived, I wore white. Not a dress. A nursing robe, soft cotton, fresh out of the dryer. I wanted to look clean, pure, innocent. The kind of woman no one would suspect of quietly plotting destruction. I even wore lip balm and curled my lashes. Micah was asleep in his bassinet beside me. Ryan had left for the gym, or so he said. I already knew he was not going to any gym. The second phone in his trunk told me the truth. Jenna had sent him a message the night before. "I want to see you before I see her. Come early." So, he did. And now, she was walking into my living room, wearing denim shorts, a loose white blouse, and coral pink lipstick. Again. I sat calmly on the couch and gestured for her to sit. "Thank you for coming," I said. She smiled, her hands folded in her lap. "Of course. You look strong. Motherhood suits you." I nodded. Then I leaned in, placed my hand on her knee, and whispered, "I know." Her smile froze. I stood up, walked to the kitchen counter, and picked up the manila envelope. Inside were printed screenshots, time-stamped messages, and a USB flash drive labeled simply, "His Lies." I dropped it in her lap. She stared down at it like it was a bomb. "I have everything," I said, my voice quiet but cold. "Every photo. Every video. Every whisper you two shared while I was busy growing the life he abandoned the second you lifted your shirt." Jenna's face drained of color. Olivia, please, I never meant." "Stop." I raised my hand, silencing her like a child. My chest was rising now, the adrenaline catching up with me. "You massaged my pregnant belly while sleeping with my husband. You watched me cry over his distance while warming his bed. You held my son. My son, with those same filthy hands you used to pleasure him." Her lip trembled. She whispered, he told me you were unhappy. I laughed. Loud. Bitter. That is what they always say, right? That their wives are distant. Boring. Cold. He said I was hormonal. That I was emotionally checked out. Of course, he did. Because it is easier to blame the woman carrying your child than to take responsibility for destroying her. She tried to stand. I pressed a hand to her shoulder and pushed her back down. No. You are going to sit there and listen. Because I gave you kindness. I trusted you with the most sacred part of my life. And you treated it like a side quest. The door opened. Ryan walked in, gym bag slung over his shoulder, a water bottle in hand. He froze. Jenna on the couch. Me standing over her. The envelope in her lap. His mouth opened, but no words came. Hey, honey, I said, calm as rain. Guess who dropped by early? He dropped the bag. Olivia, listen. I am done listening. I walked to the baby's room, picked up Micah, and returned with him in my arms. I placed the baby in Ryan's hands. He took him, eyes wide, trembling. You can hold your son for a moment. Take a good look at him. Ryan looked down at Micah, eyes flooding with tears. He deserves better, I whispered. So do I. The next week was a blur of paperwork and signatures. I filed for divorce. My lawyer sent the full file, including screenshots and timestamps, to the doula agency Jenna worked for. She was dismissed within 48 hours. Ryan begged. Every day. Texts. Flowers. Apologies. He stood on our front lawn in the rain, soaking wet, holding a sign that said, "Forgive me. I am lost without you." Neighbors took photos. One even called the police. I stayed inside. I rocked Micah to sleep. I told him, that man out there is broken. But you are whole. Because I will raise you right. Ryan eventually stopped coming. 2 months later, I sat in my OBGYN's office for a routine checkup. Dr. Elliot Carter. He was always calm, soft-spoken, intelligent. Kind eyes. He looked at me and said, "You are healing well. Stronger than most." I laughed. "You say that like you know my story." He smiled. "I do. You were the one who walked through fire and still cradled your son with grace." There was a pause. Then he asked, "Coffee sometime?" I hesitated. Then I smiled. "Yes. But just coffee. I have been full of lies lately. I need something honest." Ryan signed over majority custody. I kept the house. Jenna left town. Micah turned 1 last week. He has my eyes. My smile. Every night, I hold him and whisper the same words. You were born from love. But raised by truth. And me? I no longer wear white for peace. I wear red. Because I bled, he begged, and I chose me.